know I'm a little early, but I'm having a little issue with my eyes, so I need to put some drops in and go lay down. So I thought I would just handle this right now, real quickly. Not quickly, excuse me, but I would just handle it now. So, again, thank you for joining us this evening. Obviously, I'm Anne Marie, and I want to welcome you to our Omega Insights. Omega Insights are things that we talk about once on Mondays, every twice a month. Um, some of the topics that we talk about have to do with personal growth naturally. That's what Omega Vector is about. So I'm glad that you can join me this evening as we delve into one of my favorite topics, which is about risks. I am an avid risk taker. And I remember that taking risks, or I know somebody once asked me, how often should you take a risk? Is there a format of how to follow for taking a risk? And naturally, I'm going to say there isn't. It depends on the individual when it comes to taking a risk. If you're somebody who doesn't like to take risks, then naturally I would say take them a little bit more often. And if you're somebody who does like to take risks, then it would be to increase the risk that you take. So the question is, how often should we take a risk? What's the level of risk that we should take? A good rule of thumb is if it scares you enough, like your palms are sweating and your heart's beating, that's a pretty good risk, but you don't want to be detrimental. You want to be smart about it. I've never liked the term calculated risk. I've never liked that because to me, how is that a risk if it's calculated? But I do understand the concept of making sure that the risk you're taking isn't going to um, be either more harmful or lead you to become an adrenaline junkie where you just got to have the next one. You just got to have the next one. And that when you're not taking a risk, you're not feeling fulfilled. That's not the whole point or intention of taking a risk. For me, I think the idea of taking a risk is to learn how to fully be embodied or embraced, engaged in life. Um, when we take those risks, we want to make sure we're not overwhelming ourselves so much that we freeze, but we also want to take it into a frequency that gives us that energy, that drive. Anybody who's ever taken a risk, I know you understand what it means to be taking risks. And I wanted to introduce or address the topic of physical, emotional, and mental, because you can take risks on all those levels. Naturally, we can all understand what physical risks are. And then we have to understand the boundaries of that. How often is too often? I want to understand that navigating the importance of being careful and wise when it comes to our risks. I mean, for physical risks, take for example skydiving. I've gone skydiving a number of times. I've kayaked with killer whales just because that scared the bejesus out of me. And it gives you that rush of adrenaline. When you take that risk, there's that rush of adrenaline, and that's what we love. But we have to remember that there's got to be a line, like beyond that thrill, it teaches us about reticence, resilience, excuse me. It teaches me about resilience that I know, hey, if I could do that, I can certainly face a difficult conversation that I have to have. If I can skydive, I certainly can face an uncomfortable situation that I'm having at work where I have to, give some feedback. So it instills the idea that I have resilience and also the power of facing on our fears. Anytime you do that, you feel ignited, like you can take on the world. So that's why there has to be some boundaries set. We have to be aware of what our limitations are. Again, be mindful not to turn into the adrenaline junkie, like a weekend warrior. I remember that term used to be around. Those people they're out running around doing the weekend warrior stuff, and then they're so exhausted and physically maybe injured they can't work for a couple of days. You want to be careful about that as well. When I think about taking risks on the physical level, it's the easiest thing that we can identify. Um, I've met a number of people who have a variety of different risks, and that's why risks is such a personal term. I grew up so much of my life being terrified of birds because I was attacked by birds, but somebody next to me may not holding a bird might not be a big thing to them. I can hold a scorpion, doesn't bother me, but it might terrify another individual. So you have to find the personal risk. And I'm not saying hold a scorpion as a risk. That was just me picking up a scorpion and getting it out of the house. As a Buddhist, that's just, let's say. However, it's not about me and it's not about my risks. It's the idea that everybody has their own level of risks and their own comfort level. It's to find where your comfort level is and to push a little bit more, just a little bit more. Something that you might be, I don't know if I really want to do that. I knew a woman who was terrified to turn right. She did not want to, I'm sorry, turn left. She never wanted to cross the traffic. So she literally mapped out her way when she was driving, only right turns only to get to. It took her a little bit longer. Something happened when she was younger. She was in an accident and going left side. So that was it. She just didn't want to do that. There were people who were afraid to fly for the same reasons, that a loved one may have been in a car accident, I'm sorry, in a plane accident. So there's many reasons why we have the risks. And of course, as we know, the benefit of them, the physical risk, back to the idea of the physical risk, it's the easiest thing to attain. It's the easiest thing that we can feel. When we take that risk, we see it, we know it, we're doing it. So skydiving, a great, now I'm not telling everybody you have to go jump out of a plane to feel a risk, but you know a physical risk. Introducing yourself to a stranger, starting up conversation in a restaurant with somebody next to you. That might not be a risk for you, but it might be for somebody who's introverted. A physical risk, again, there's a number of things that can be done, physical challenges, losing weight. I know that may not seem like a risk to some people, but it is risky to diet, put yourself in the vulnerability of being on a diet, having an accountability buddy. That can be considered a risk for some people as well. So it's not just the adrenaline that we're looking for. It's the idea of being able to face our fears. Our physical risks will give us adrenaline. Emotional risks will also give us adrenaline. The mental risk, not so much because it's on a different level, but let's just stick with the physical. So as I've mentioned, you can have a risk of riding on a motorcycle with somebody who knows how to ride a motorcycle and you don't. The physical risk can be hiking. Heights is another one where people who are terrified of heights. So standing up on a higher level, looking out the window, that can be a risk for some people. I know some people have a hard time with open spaces. So climbing up on mountains, going for a hike, and there's a big open space and there's nothing really to hang on to. That can be a risk as well. So these are the things to think about when it comes to a physical risk. What is it that you might want to challenge yourself? And it's not so much, as I said, it's not so much for the adrenaline, it's for the idea of facing fear. So if you're afraid of, I don't know, afraid of spiders, go to a pet store and hold a tarantula. Hold a snake if you're afraid of snakes. So something along that lines where you're in a controlled environment where you'll be safe, but gives you the opportunity to experience facing a fear, and you will get that adrenaline rush. And the thing that I love about that adrenaline rush, it puts you into the present moment. The entire time you're in that fear, you're in the present moment. And that is so beneficial for us. It's beneficial for us to have those moments of triumphant moments of jumping over or surpassing that fear that has a hold on us. Because every fear holds us back from burning our brilliance. When I step into that fear and I face it head on, I break the chains that are shackling me down. I break them. And I'm free to move to the next one. I'm free to be more engaged. I'm free to be more fulfilled, connected with life, with the universal life force, if we can say that. Then, of course, as I mentioned, there's emotional risks. Emotional risks. Now, these are things like a leap of faith into relationships. You know, you don't know who that person is. You want to be friends with them. I'm not sure. So we just take that jump and that leap of faith to stepping into a relationship. The emotional risks are, you know, trust is an emotional risk. Do I trust this individual? Being vulnerable on personal growth and connection with individuals. How often do I take these emotional leaps? We have to remember that it can't be draining to us. Again, boundaries are important. I can reach out and establish friendships. I can reach out and establish relationships as long as it's not too much on me. if it's not causing too much of an emotional drain. You know, I might have people in my life that I can only have a conversation with every once in a while because it's too much on me. There's too much reaction that I have to be involved in, or too much on both parts. I mean, I might be reactive to things they're saying, they might be reactive to me. You know who those people are in your life that cause that little button, that so you practice. So that's an emotional risk. You have a conversation with somebody that pushes your buttons so that you don't get so emotional all the time. But it's those, remember, you have to have boundaries, the little leaps of faith that we do with emotional. And you know this, you know the people you're afraid to speak to, relationships you're afraid to. So emotionally, this is, making those connections. That to me is more emotional. It deals with my feeling of inferiority or feeling of insignificance, that I don't have any value. I can't make a contribution. So all of those lead to not speaking up in public, being shy, being introverted, avoiding eye contact. All of those are considered risks. So if you want to work on the emotional aspect of your life, seek those start with the easy ones. Seek with eye contact. Say people's names when you introduce yourself. Ask for their name. Where do they live? Uh, just general conversation would be a good emotional risk. And then, of course, with the mental risk, this is a little bit harder to do. Mental risk is like challenging your belief systems. One thing I started many, many, many years ago, probably when I first started involved in Omega, I challenged my belief system of my religion. I grew up as a Roman Catholic, and I wanted to challenge that. Is that there's so many religions on the planet? How is this the only right religion? So I did. I challenged myself to learn about the Hebrew religion. I learned about the Buddhist religion, Taoism. I learned about Muslim and Hindu. I did as much research as I could find until I found a place where I feel comfortable now in where I selected. Instead of because I was told you're born this way and this is how you want to be, I chose my religion now because I did some research. So I challenged my own beliefs. I didn't challenge the people in my life. I didn't challenge their beliefs. I challenged what I believed. And the way I did that mentally was open my mind and read something that I would have never thought about reading. I mean, I've read books that people say you should never read that. Well, I've read them just to see what the point is, and not to say right or wrong. Do I believe or not believe in them? I chose my decisions as I read. And those of you who know me, I've talked about the idea that if you look at all of the dogmas and the religions on the planet, they all boil down to very similar beliefs: compassion, unconditional love, forgiveness, betterment, being self improvement. They all have the same underlying characteristics. So when it comes to mental beliefs, this is where you challenge yourself. And again, I'll emphasize this, that risks are personal. It's your own personal level of physical comfort, emotional comfort, and mental comfort. If you are feeling stagnant physically, then you have to do it a physical risk. If you are feeling stagnant emotionally, if you're not feeling engaged, if you're feeling depressed, if you have emotional angst, then it's time for you to take an emotional risk. If you are feeling stagnant mentally, like you're in the same thought form, and if you definitely have a right and a wrong way of being, that is a way, an indication mental risk, and a mental risk is necessary. So the border, as I said, each level has a boundary. So when you're thinking mentally, now using my own case for religious, I've gone to a Buddhist temple, I've gone to a Hindu temple, I have gone to um, Hebrew temple. Like I've gone to different denominations and religions in the Catholic religion. It's not just Catholic. There's a lot of I've attended many different masses, so I can feel what it feels like to be in those environments. Now, I wouldn't feel comfortable going into a place where a woman was not accepted, like a mosque. I wouldn't force myself to go into a mosque just because I'm going to be there. No, I don't want to. I have to be safe about it, and I don't want to violate somebody else's religious beliefs as well. So that's where you draw the boundaries. And did I involve myself in devil worshiping? No, because I just didn't. I mean, I read a little bit about it, but I don't want to go attend one. Thank you very much. I mean, I have a limit. So there's a boundary, excuse me. There's a boundary where I feel I don't feel safe enough to step into that area. Now, when it comes to taking the right time, as I already mentioned, this has to do with your own comfort level. If you are starting to feel stagnant, that's a good indication that it's time to take a risk. What are the benefits? Of course, you already know there's so many benefits from taking risks. There's insights and lessons that you can learn, pushing yourself beyond your own boundaries. The risk itself, as I said, the ultimate idea of the risk is to help you burn brighter, to burn brilliantly, to be more engaged. That's the intention of taking risks, is to not be confined to what I will and won't do, what I will not and will do. It's not being confined into that little box, but embracing more and more of life. When you embrace so much more of life, you are more magnetic as well. By stepping into those situations, overcoming those fears, you actually are inspirational. You can inspire other people in your life as well. Um, Spreading more joy, because whenever you take a risk, there is more joy connected to that. There's so many positive outcomes. It's important. It's so important in our lives to take a risk. Now, I'm a fan of taking risks. I often give assignments to people that they should be taking risks. If you've ever been in a training with me, you know I'm going to give you a risk because I understand the value of it. But I'm not in your personal life every day, so it's up to you to assign yourself a risk. It's up to you to challenge yourself. It's 2024. Challenge yourself. Do something once a week. And that's just not once a week. Take a conscious risk once a week. It could be something as simple as going to a restaurant and ordering something you never ate before, just to try something different. It could be, again, talking to a stranger if you're in this grocery store, asking for a recommendation for a movie. If you're going to go to a movie theater, ask the person at which movie would you like to see. I mean, those are little risks that you can do. It starts out small, and then maybe you can get yourself up to, if skydiving is something big for you, or kayaking with killer whales. I mean, it really is up to you. It's a personal endeavor. I know I talked quite fast about this, and I get excited and very passionate when it comes to taking risks because I know the benefits for me, and I've seen the benefits with individuals in the classroom. I've seen what risk can do for people, how beneficial and how important a risk is in our lives. So thank you for joining me this afternoon. I really appreciate it. And remember, there is an Omega 1 that is available. We are open registration now on February 23rd to the 25th. That's a couple of weeks. If you are interested in revisiting an Omega, or if you have family, friends, and loved ones that you would like to send them through, just go to the link. Go to the website and you can register there. Again, thank you for joining me. Enjoy your risks. I hope to see a lot more exciting individuals. Let us know how it goes. So thank you and have a good evening. Bye now.